Hi there, my name is Ben Tainch. I work for United Appropriate Body. I'm going to speak to you today about how to write a report for an ECT that is on track to successfully complete their induction. So, ECT reports. An ECT will have a report each term that is submitted on ECT Manager. In Term 1 and Term 2 each year, the ECT will have a progress review. In Term 3 each year, the ECT will have an assessment. For our standard induction ECTs, that means that they will have a progress review at Christmas and Easter, and an assessment at the end of the summer term. Progress reviews are shorter and provide a snapshot of the ECT's progress against the teacher standards, whereas assessments are longer and require evidence of the ECT's progress against each of the teaching standards. The easiest way to manage the ECT reports is by using the induction summary document to track the ECT observations and professional review meetings. When writing reports, we suggest using a Word document, as ECT Manager has a timeout function, so it can be incredibly frustrating if you've been working on the ECT reports and it does not save. Just there has come up the front page of the induction summary document. If you need a copy of this document, please email us, but you should also be able to find it in the resources section on ECT Manager. So let's start off with progress reviews. On a progress review, you need 3 comments on the ECT strengths, comments on the previous targets, if relevant, 2 development targets for next term, and then we complete the report with the ECT comment. For assessments, you need to comment on the ECT's progress against each teacher standard, comment on the ECT's personal and professional conduct, comment on the ECT's areas for development and targets, and then finally, they will finish the report by including their comments. Generally speaking, the progress reviews are a shorter snapshot of the ECT's progress, whereas the assessments are more detailed. So now I'm going to share with you some examples of ECT's strengths within the progress reviews and how you can go about writing up your observation notes in a way which is helpful for both the ECT and us at the appropriate body. So here I've got an ECT called David. I've observed him twice, and I'm writing up some of the strengths on the progress review. Teach Standard 5, break down content and key terms for students, adapting teaching to the needs of students. For example, with 7.3, David stopped and clarified what certain words meant, such as infrastructure. Hopefully you can see from that example, but there are specific examples picked out from the observation, and it's clearly linked to the teaching standards. Teacher Standard 1. High expectations of students evident in clear routines and instructions. For example, with Year 10, David used hands-free Track Me to ensure all students were listening and waited for 100% compliance. Teacher Standard 7. Warm, strict teaching persona. David, in both lesson observations, narrated the positive whilst also challenging students that were not meeting expectations, which ensured a productive learning environment. Now I'm going to share with you some non-examples of how to write ECT strengths into the progress reviews. For example, writing a comment was generic with no specific examples, such as Teacher Standard 5. David is good at adapting his teaching to the needs of students. This enables students to access the lesson content. This is a nice comment, however, it does not have any examples from any observations that have taken place. No reference to the teacher standards. David has clear routines. For example, he managed a transition between the carpet and chairs with a countdown. This ensured he maximised learning time for his Year 5 class. Again, this is a nice comment. However, it would be good to have this clearly linked to one of the teacher standards. Teacher standards copied. An issue that we have come across in the past is that the teacher standards are merely copied into the progress view and/or assessment, such as Teach Standard 1. David sets high expectations which inspire, motivate and challenge pupils, and he established a safe and stimulating environment for pupils rooted in mutual respect. This just repeats the teacher standard and therefore doesn't tell us specifically how the teacher is getting on within their context and their school. And it is. Have a look through these different comments here and have a think about which of the following comments is most suitable for a progress review. There, I'd pick out the second one. Teach Standard 3, Jess has strong subject knowledge. For example, she clearly modelled addition and subtraction with her Year 1 class and identified mistakes on mini whiteboards. The first one doesn't have any specific examples from the observation, and the final one has no link. Here we're going to look at some examples of commenting on ECT's strengths on the assessments. So in the assessments, you comment on every single teacher's standard. Teach Standard 7 focuses on effectively managing student behaviour to create positive and safe learning environment. So here's an example of an ECT called Olivia. Olivia has made good progress with managing students' behaviour in class. With 9.2, she has ensured that she implements school behaviour policy and positive points are logged for each lesson. This was seen on her observation where she wrote the names of students that gave good answers on the board and followed this up with praise. Olivia has also upheld school standards around uniform, challenging her Year 11 students upon entry to her classroom to tuck in their shirts and ensure their ties are the correct length. This has enabled her to develop her authority in the classroom. So I've got two separate comments here, both under Teacher Standard 7, and I'd repeat this for all 8 teacher standards. It is important here, but I am commenting on an ECT that is on track to successfully complete induction, and therefore I haven't had to put in any howevers and haven't had to put in any areas of development. Whereas if you are working with an ECT but needs more support, I would recommend using the body of the report to highlight some of the areas that they need to work on. Here's another example of ECT strength for Teacher Standard 5. Adapt teaching to respond to the strengths and needs of pupils. John has made good progress in ensuring that there are scaffolds in place, such as sentence starters, to help students complete independent writing. For example, during his latest observation, John used sentence starters such as Jack went to enable students to construct simple sentences. John also challenges his most able pupils. In the same lesson observation, John challenged high-achieving students to turn their simple sentences into complex sentences. He then checked these sentences as he circulated, and this ensured that there was sufficient level of challenge for all students in the class. And again, for John's ECT report, he would have 2 to 3 comments against all of the teacher's standards during his assessment. So a really important part for your ECT is their development targets, and these should be discussed in the professional review meetings as well and shared with your ECT, and they should reflect on these in their ECT comment. Now, to make sure that the development targets are useful for their induction as an ECT, please make sure that they are clearly linked to the teacher standards. Also make sure that the targets are SMART, so they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. For example, Teach Standard 1. At times, students are non-compliant in Frankie's class and opt out of the do now at the start of lesson. Frankie should circulate in the first minute after starting the do now and use non-verbals to get students to start their work. It should be followed up by further circulation and sanctions if students continue to opt out. So here, I've tried to give something very, very specific within Frankie's teaching. I've tried to make it as measurable as possible so anybody who goes in to do a learning walk and or observation can see that this is being met. I've made it realistic in terms of using the school behaviour policy. And I've also made it time bound by giving a specific time in the lesson for it to be completed. For the next target, this is around Teacher Standard 8. To contribute to the wider school community, Isabel should contribute to the school's extracurricular programme by running a club in the summer term. Isabel has shown interest in running a computer programming club, and it has been suggested that she runs this club after school on a Wednesday. So again, we picked out something specific to do with Isabel's role within the school. We've made sure it is measurable by putting in very specific times, but this club could be run. We'll make sure that it is achievable by giving her the correct score with this target. And obviously it is time bound because it specifically mentions the summer term. A non-example might be Ben needs to use data more effectively to support students. And the main issues that we have with development targets for our ECTs is usually that they are generic and they cannot be measured. And therefore it makes it hard for both the induction tutor and the ECT to reflect on these development targets in their next assessment or progress review. From the second report then, as the induction tutor, you'll be required to comment on the progress against the previous development targets. Again, this is an ECT on track, so therefore I'm assuming that they have met their previous development targets. So if we go back to Frankie's target, Teach Standard 1, Frankie has been circulating during both observations this term and increasing the participation in the Do Now. In each lesson, Frankie has been observed breaking the plane and carrying out one-to-one interventions to ensure that all students complete the Do Now activity. So we can see that Frankie has made good progress and has met the target from the previous report. Teach Standard 8, Isabel has successfully contributed to the wider school community by setting up and running her computing club. There are 10 students that come to her club and they've been using Scratch to create interactive stories, games and animations. And again, in this case, Isabel has successfully met her target and has shown evidence against Teacher Standard 8. So the key takeaways are: 1, we recommend that you use the induction summary document. This is a really handy place to track and log all of your observations and professional review meetings. This is a great place for you to start when it comes to writing your ECT reports. 2, please use specific examples in your comments and also in your targets. And 3, please make sure that everything is linked clearly to the teacher standards. This is because your ECT's induction is assessed against the teacher standards, and therefore we need to have clear evidence that they are meeting the teaching standards in these reports. Thank you so much for your time and all the best in writing your reports moving forward.